Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. In this episode, we have a clip here of President Joe Biden taking questions from the press and gets a little bit feisty and pushes back when asked about the economy heading into a recession. Now, as always, if you want to join us here at the show or heck support a conservative, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help us grow here at the show, so your help would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, this one comes from CNN, or in other words, how Donald Trump might say it, the fake news media, the fakest of them all, almost as fake as Hillary, just as fake as Rosie. So again, it's CNN. They're on the beaches of Delaware, so it makes it kind of hard to hear what's going on. But Joe Biden, in my opinion, is taking unvetted questions, meaning they're not prepared. He doesn't have his note card with him. And I think this because of the way that he answers it, and he makes a really stupid joke, which we'll talk about in a moment. But a reporter here is asking him and saying, hey, economists have come out. They're saying that we're heading into a recession. And this is how Joe Biden answers.
I promise. Recession's even more likely than ever.
Not the majority of them aren't saying that. Come on, don't make things up, okay? Now you sound like a Republican politician. I'm joking. That was a joke. But all kidding aside, no, I don't think it is.
Okay, just a hilarious joke, folks. Just hilarious. He doesn't think it is. And this is the same messaging that came from Karine Jean-Pierre, Jen Psaki before that. So at least they're all in unison on their messaging. But there's a few problems with what he said. One of which is you're just making things up. You sound like a Republican politician. And this type of language from the Democrat Party has been going on far too long. The fact that, Republicans just make things up. The data that we pull is from hocus pocus, is from the skies, that we don't deal with reality, which is always mind-blowing to me. And I'll tell you why. The Democrat Party's platform thinks that men can give birth. Not just that men can give birth, but they think men can transform and transition into women, and that women can transform and transition into men. And there's no biological difference between the two, which is why they want men to be able to compete in women's sports and women to compete in men's sports and completely get shellacked by the men. But there's no difference. And not just that, therefore killing a baby up to the point of birth, meaning you're centimeters from the canal, folks, coming out, and just can fully kill it. But we don't deal with reality. We're crazy, folks. We're nutso. We just make things up. This is the Democrat Party on how they feel about Republicans. Now, not everything that Joe Biden says here is wrong. He is technically right in that majority of economists aren't saying that we're heading into recession. But the Wall Street Journal came out with a survey, and I think it's important to talk about and cover. The Wall Street Journal says this: economists surveyed the Wall Street Journal have dramatically raised the probability of a recession, now putting it at 44% in the next 12 months. So because it's not 51%, Joe Biden's technically correct. But a level usually seen only on the brink of or during actual recessions, meaning this survey, there is a correlation between the 44% and recession itself, that when they hit those types of numbers, that a recession is always followed. It goes on to say this: the likelihood of a recession has increased rapidly this year as inflationary pressures remain strong and the Federal Reserve took increasingly aggressive action to tame them. I don't think their action was enough, and we'll get to that in a moment as well. Economists on average put the probability of the economy being in a recession sometime in the next 12 months at just 28% when the survey was conducted in April, and it was 18% in January. Meaning at the beginning of the year, it went from 18 to 28 to now 44. You're almost looking at an exponential function of heading into recession. But Joe Biden doesn't think so. Karine Jean-Pierre doesn't think so. We're just in a transition phase, folks. And they haven't explained what that transition phase is. I think the transition phase is going from somewhat of a good economy, again, somewhat, to a recession. That's the transition. But they think a transition is something else. Again, a male going to female, a female going to male, I suppose. I'm not sure. Well, it goes on to say forecasters have raised recession probability due to a number of factors: high borrowing costs, a blistering pace of inflation, supply chain problems, and a commodity price shocks stemming from the war in Ukraine. Mostly, however, they see dimming chances that a steeper path of rate increases by the Fed can cool inflation without inducing higher unemployment and an economic downturn. Basically saying that the Federal Reserve's trying to do a balancing act, and that them increasing inflation, or in other words, if you go to the other direction, decreasing, not inflation, interest rate numbers, increasing or decreasing, they're trying to balance it out like it's a seesaw, and that it's a very tough thing to do. And they have a feeling that with what the current interest rates are in the direction of being aggressive of 0.75% of what we saw before of the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates, that that's not enough to stem and cool down what is taking place, and that we're going to lean still into recession. Now, if you look at what the Federal Reserve was doing in, say, the 80s, the numbers that we're currently at right now in terms of interest rates aren't anywhere near to what they were there. So this is why a lot of people are kind of nervous, and it's not just economists, but it's also CEOs. It goes on to say this: the US economic contraction to start the year was worse than expected, as the weak business and private investment failed to offset strong consumer spending. This came from the Commerce Department and was reported last month. First quarter GDP declined at 1.5%. This is terrible because what they predicted was 1.3%. And then they're like, okay, we'll give it a little bit of buffer. We'll give it a little bit of a kind of a leeway. This is for the Dow Jones. That the Dow Jones is like, oh, we'll give it 1.4. So the Bureau of Economic Analysis gave it 1.3. The Dow Jones was like, we'll give a decline of 1.4%. And Joe Biden exceeded expectations with a decline of 1.5%. So not only is he breaking records in other areas, but he's still exceeding expectations in the worst possible way. And like I said, CEOs are looking at this and trying to prepare themselves. CEOs of the nation's largest companies have also expressed concern regarding a coming recession. The hurricane is right out there, down the road, coming our way. We just don't know if there is a minor one or a superstorm, Sandy, an Andrew, or something like that. And you better brace yourself. This came from JP Morgan and Chase CEO and also reported by NPR. Well, Tesla CEO Elon Musk wants to slash 10% of jobs at the company due to his super bad feeling about the economy. This was reported by Reuters. And there was kind of a conflict between Joe Biden coming out and kind of bashing Elon Musk because Elon Musk wants to slash 10%, where I think it was like Ford or Toyota, some car manufacturer was increasing jobs, union jobs, and Joe Biden was like ranting and raving about it. And Elon Musk could probably hold and retain that 10%, but is that the wise decision to do when you know you're heading into recession and an economy that's downward and spiraling? But Joe Biden doesn't understand that. And I fully think that he doesn't understand economics or how production and businesses work, just based on his conversations with oil companies. The oil companies had to explain to him what they needed. They had to explain to him how competition works between oil companies and taking out permits. That just because they took out a permit doesn't mean that they're actually going to drill in that place. So they had to explain all these things to Joe Biden that's been in Congress for 40 plus years that should know all these things, but he doesn't. But he consistently, puts his foot in his mouth, says things that are knucklehead things, like he is here talking about Republicans, even though it was a joke, a bad joke. And he's quite frankly, when you're talking about the economy right now and how bad things are going for you, you probably shouldn't be joking. There's a time and place for everything. There wasn't a joke, and that wasn't the time. It says the United States economy shrank at 1.5% annualized rate in the first quarter of 2022. That came from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, which associates recessions with 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. In a recent email to executive by Reuters, Musk instructed Tesla to pause all hiring worldwide. It said the company needs to cut 10% of jobs. Tesla currently has more than 99,000 employees. Microsoft, Coinbase, and other tech companies have also recently announced recent plans to slow hiring over potential recession. Meaning, it's not helping that your GDP is going down by 1.5%. It's not helping that economists, 44% of them, think that we're heading into recession. It doesn't help that consumers think that we're heading to recession, meaning that they're pulling back from buying. It doesn't help that inflation's skyrocketing and the Federal Reserve can't stop it. So all these things are taking place. They're not going to be hiring people. So if they're not hiring people, people aren't able to get jobs, meaning you have unemployment. People have to save more, meaning they're not spending more, which correlates to exactly what I said. So you get this vicious cycle that's taking place that's only going to hinder. There's so many variables taking place that I don't think the Federal Reserve is going to be able to increase interest rates fast enough. They're behind schedule on when they should have started doing this to stop a recession. Joe Biden thinks it's not going to happen. He can think whatever the heck he wants. But I personally think so. Ben Shapiro thinks so. Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, Candace Owens, Steven Crowder, everybody at the Blaze, Glenn Beck. Everybody thinks we're heading into recession, but Joe Biden's administration doesn't want to believe so. Again, we're the ones that doesn't deal with reality, but here you have it, Joe Biden himself not dealing with reality. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think we're heading into recession, or do you think Federal Reserve is going to be able to stop it? As always, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Share this link with your friends and family all over social media. And folks, I will see you later here on The Bob Brad Show.